So these are the following criteria that we use in the video to determine if something is excessive, absent, inadequate, any of that, all of the above, based on degree. So excessive contralateral hip drop would be greater than 4 to 6 degrees, or lateral translation greater than 1 inch. Inadequate hip extension would be less than 10 degrees. Excessive femoral anteversion, which would be internal rotation, and adduction leading to a knee valgus. And excessive knee valgus, so it'd be a medial collapse or drift greater than 6 degrees. And then as well as excessive greater than 25 degrees or inadequate less than 15 degrees of knee flexion during mid stance. Excessive toe out or external rotation greater than 5 degrees. Inadequate ankle dorsiflexion less than 10 degrees. Excessive subtalar calcaneal eversion from heel strike to end the mid stance phase, which would be greater than 8 degrees. Excessive forefoot mid tarsal pronation greater than 10 degrees. And inadequate first ray dorsiflexion or extension of less than 60 degrees. So today, while assessing Adam's gait, the purpose of this assessment is to find the main determinants of gait resulting from the minimizing of center of mass movement and minimizing overall energy expenditure. With that, we will be ranking each of Adam's movements on the degree of the movement with a scale of present to not present, adequate to inadequate, and excessive to absent with each given movement that he does. Adam, what I'm going to have you do is start down here. We've got a 20-foot section of runway for you, and you're just going to walk. Sound good? Sounds great. Perfect. So first thing we will be looking at when Adam starts to walk here is his arm swing. And as you can see, it is symmetrical on both sides. It is noticeable from the front and the rear view. Now moving on to the pelvis, we are looking for posterior pelvic rotation as well as a pelvic list. From what I see, there's symmetrical pelvic rotation as well as symmetrical pelvic list, which would just be meaning a hip drop. With the pelvic list, we can see a 1 inch laterality to be within a normal range. Now next, we will be looking at the hips for flexion extension. Now, looking through the video, I noted that I saw normal flexion within the hips. Now, looking from the lateral view, referring to the flexion and extension of the hip, I see normal flexion from this video, but I do notice a inadequate extension on the left, which from this lateral view is quite noticeable. It almost looks like he's taken a bit of a shorter step here on the left side, which does translate to some findings, which we will talk about here in a minute. Now, I do not notice any excessive or inadequate or adequate amounts of Now, I do see adequate amount of internal and external rotation here referring to the hips. But one thing that I do notice that I don't see on the evaluation sheet is the way he brings his left leg around when he steps. You can see it a little bit here in this lateral view. But when I move us back here to the anterior posterior view, especially from the starting point right here, you can see how he brings that left leg around in front of his right foot. Now with this, I do not notice any varus or valgus of the knees, and I see adequate flexion and extension of the knees as well. From this anterior posterior view, I do not see any excessive foot flare. And then if we move to the lateral view, I see adequate amounts of ankle dorsiflexion. Now, if we go back to the anterior posterior view, looking at pronation and supination of the subtalar joint, if we get him from the posterior here, I do see slight pronation of the left foot. It's hard to see when he carries it around, but from my view when the video is taken, you could definitely see it. And you can see it a little bit here in the front, how it kind of kicks in there, looking at that medial malleolus. And I do not see any pronation of the right. I call that absent, as well as absent supination, of the left and right foot as well. Now looking at the midfoot, which we can see on his way back down here from the anterior view, we will be looking for pronation and supination. I did note in limited pronation of the left foot, specifically the midfoot, labeled that as inadequate. And then as far as the right foot for pronation is adequate, supination, left and right foot would be adequate as well. So only noticeable discrepancy here is his left foot pronation, calling that inadequate. Now, looking at the first metatarsal phalangeal joint and dorsiflexion, I called that both adequate. We can look at a live video feed here. Nothing noticeably wrong here at all. And then when we move into the photos here, you can see that he has plenty of first MTP dorsiflexion of left and right foot.